Hey guys, Kimbo Chris back out here on the range again today with Crusader Armory TV. And today guys, we're talking about carry guns. The gun that you more than likely carry with you everywhere you go if you're a smart individual. The gun that probably touches your body more than your significant other does. The gun that you should probably, practice with the most because it's more than likely going to be the gun that you have to use in a sticky situation, in today's society. So we're going to go through with these two guns. These are the newest new handguns I have added to my collection that I want to put in my carry rotation. The Sig is already in my carry rotation, and I'm really putting the Smith & Wesson Shield Plus carry comp through its test right now to really ingrain it into my carry rotation. So today guys, I'm going to be talking about a few different things when it comes to EDC and carry guns, such as holster selection, what gun that may fit your needs, barrel length, things like that when you're picking a carry gun, especially if you're a new shooter, and also just the training that I go through with each gun that I buy to kind of run it through its paces and really identify if it's something that I want to throw into my carry rotation. So I'm just going to be going through a few drills, a few training exercises, things that you guys may want to use at home to get better with your carry gun, and just kind of go through what I look for when I do pick a new carry gun, as far as it goes with the gun, the optic, the holster, the mag capacity, all of those good things. So the two guns I have out here is the Sig P365 FUSE, and I have the Smith & Wesson Shield Plus carry comp. This is a comped vented Smith & Wesson Shield with a 4-inch barrel, and I just threw the Wesson optic on it. So I did just do a video on this Wesson 407K green dot, which I had it on the 5.7. I did just migrate that to this handgun, seeming that I do want to carry this gun, and I like to carry my guns with optics, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So before we get into the shooting, I do just want to do a quick shameless shout out here. Our clothing brand. You can see here I'm wearing a shirt, Modern Day Crusader. Modern Day Crusader is our clothing brand that will be dropping next month. That is a Christian-oriented, kind of tactical style, warrior style t-shirt brand. That's kind of what we're going for, the graphics and things like that. So you can kind of see this one just as an example. If you're a Christian and you like to shoot out in the range with cool tactical gear, or you go to the gym and you want to wear something that's super hard but Christian oriented, then please stay tuned for this drop, because this is like a warrior style Christian clothing brand that we will be releasing, that we have plenty of designs to release for. Some are more tactical, some are more gym oriented, but overall all the designs are just super hard, and you'll see me wearing these designs in a lot of my videos just to kind of showcase what these look like, how they fit, and things like that. So if you are interested in that, please stay tuned for the drop. We have not dropped the website yet, but we will be soon. So please stay tuned. So we're gonna get into some shooting today, guys. Well, with these two firearms, like I said, these are the newest new additions to my carry rotation. And I'm just gonna go through kind of what I do when I buy a new gun, what I look for before I buy the gun, as it pertains to carrying the firearm, and kind of what training I do to put the firearm to its paces, how many rounds I usually put through it before I carry it to deem it reliable, and overall how I train with it to get good with it. Because if you guys know, these are just tools. At the end of the day, your skill is really what makes you the weapon, right? These are tools. They can work very well if you know how to use them. However, if you're not trained with them and you don't know how to use them very well, then they're just as ineffective as you are, essentially. So training is very important, and that's kind of what I want to go through today. So without further ado, guys, we're going to go ahead and get into some of the shooting, and just kind of go over the guns and why I chose these guns in particular to add to my carry rotation, and maybe give you guys some insight if you're looking for a new carry gun, or maybe you're just now getting into guns and want to buy your first handgun, on what you should look for with carry guns from somebody who has a little bit of experience with it. Alright guys, like I said, I have two guns out here today. So we're going to start out with the Smith & Wesson Shield Plus carry comp. I did do a first impressions on this gun on my channel, so if you haven't seen that and you're interested in this firearm, please go check it out. These are super cool firearms that Smith just released, with a comped barrel and a vented slide to help with that recoil, and I think that makes a big difference in the Shield platform, because the shields are usually very snappy. So if you are interested in that, please go check out our video. But I am going to do a quick rundown on this gun. So I did just recently pick this gun up to add it to my EDC rotation, and the reason I did that was because I needed something a little bit smaller, a little bit more of a micro gun. I've had the 43X and I had a few other ones, and you know, they shoot well and they do their job, but I have gotten to the point where I've owned so many handguns at this point that I really like the more Gucci stuff when it comes to handguns. And the reason for that being is because when it comes to spending money, right, on a gun, I would say for like an AR-15, a lot of them are very, very similar, right? You're paying for small upgrades in furniture or maybe finishes and things like that. On handguns, upgrades go so much further, right? This is going to be the gun that you need to use in a very, very sticky situation. So you want this to be as much as a superpower as absolutely possible, meaning it's accurate, it is as flat, and it has as many rounds as you can carry in a compact platform. You really do not want to cheap out on your primary carry gun. I would advocate that you could get away with some cheaper ARs or some cheaper shotguns or things like that. But when it comes to handguns, the differences in these can be very substantial in affecting your performance. So the reason I picked the Smith & Wesson up, the Shield Plus, is that it is still a compact gun, so you do still have that micro frame. I think that is very important when it comes to concealability. So if you are looking for something that you can conceal very easily, then you do want to make sure that you have a somewhat compact frame. These do come with 3 magazines. This is the biggest magazine that it comes with. This is the 15 rounder. So you got 15 plus 1, 16 round mag capacity. Any firearm that I look to carry, I look for it to be at least over 10 rounds. And the reason I say that is because if you look at self-defense cases in some of these states that have these 10 round compliance, magazine compliance laws, then you do see cases where, you know, people are being ambushed at their front door and they end up running out of ammo, getting in a gunfight with somebody in the street. God forbid that situation happens to you. You do not want to be limited to 10 rounds if it's not absolutely required by law, right? In a state where you're free and you have all your 2A rights, you know, you can carry guns that have as many rounds as you want. However, the more rounds comes with more weight, and it comes with more length usually on the handgun. So you do want something that's still a little bit micro. This gun does come with 3 mag options. You have the extended mag, there's a slightly more extended one that holds 13 rounds, and then you have the flat flush mag that is 10 rounds. So you do have an option, but me personally, I don't want to carry anything that has less than 10 rounds in the magazine. Next thing is the barrel length. This is a micro gun, but it has a 4-inch barrel. The original Shield had a much shorter barrel. I think it ended right here with the actual frame, and that makes 9mm a lot more snappy. That 1/2 inch on the barrel or so can make a giant difference in your performance as a shooter. So especially if you're a new shooter, the mistake that I see a lot of people make when they're buying their first handgun is, you know, they want to go in and they're like, I just want something small, I just want a 9, and then they end up buying some compact, snappy handgun that they can't hit a broadside of a barn with. There's a lot of people out there who will buy like a Taurus G2C or G3, something like that, and you know, they just don't have the skill to shoot it well enough. And I do think that if you just opt in for an option like a Glock 19 or something that has that, you know, 4+ inch barrel, then you will have so much more performance in your accuracy because there's a lot less flip, but also you will get more velocity out of your bullets. So with a self-defense platform, you want to make sure that your hollow points are effective because you are responsible for every bullet that leaves the barrel of that gun. So you want to make sure when you hit your target that that bullet doesn't have a lot of energy if it ends up passing through whatever you're shooting at, right? Because if that bullet goes and it hits somebody else, you are going to be held responsible for that. So you want to make sure that you have a gun where your barrel is long enough where those hollow points will be effective. If you are carrying a shorter barrel gun, then I would recommend you do your research on the ammunition that you're carrying and make sure that you have a projectile that will expand out of a shorter barrel. They do have some rounds that are made specifically for shorter barrels that perform a little bit better out of shorter barrels when it comes to talking about expansion. So for me personally, this is just a personal preference. I don't want to carry anything with less than a 4-inch barrel. I want to be able to shoot out to 25+ yards if I absolutely have to. I want this to have the capability of going out a little bit further and still being somewhat viable. And also, I want, in a stressful situation, there's no telling what kind of grip I will get on this gun. I don't want a super snappy handgun. So that 4-inch barrel, that extra little inch or so on there, or even ½ inch sometimes, can make a giant difference. And that's why I bought the Steel Plus Carry Comp, because this is their first model that has a longer 4-inch barrel on it. And it is also comp, so that will help a lot with the recoil as well. So I would just say for new shooters, make sure you're not going in the gun shop and wanting the smallest thing out there. I understand that it's attractive because you can kind of put it in your pocket, you can carry it around and it will still punch holes in things, but I'm telling you, in a stressful situation, you do not want to be relying on a $200–300 snappy small handgun with a bad trigger. A lot of times that's just not going to be suitable for you, and a lot of people don't put in the amount of training they would need to be efficient with that gun anyway. I'm not saying it won't work, but you would definitely need to train a lot more with that over something like this that out of the box is just a lot flatter, it shoots more accurately, and you have that extra barrel length for hollow points. The next thing I would say is the sights. When I'm looking at a carry gun, I want to make sure that it has good sights. You want something that has night sights or something like that on there. I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker for me, but you know, if you aren't buying something that has night sights on there, you're going to want to at least make sure that it has a red dot mount. Because in the situation, you're getting out your car at night and you're going in the house and maybe there's some people that run up on you or something like that. God forbid you get in a self-defense situation. You want to make sure that your EDC is usable at night. This isn't a situation with an AR-15 or a shotgun when you're inside your house and you can hear the people kicking in the door. You can grab your firearm and turn on the lights or get a flashlight. This is a situation where you have to use it in a very sticky scenario. So you want to make sure that you have the option to be able to shoot in a dark situation. If all your sights are black and you can't really see them at night, then you're gonna have an issue with that, getting accurate shots off. And like I said, you're responsible for every bullet that leaves that barrel. So you wanna make sure they hit what you're aiming at. So a red dot will help with that because you can see that in dark situations, or make sure that you have some night sights or something like that. The next thing for me, and this is also personal preference, is I have to have a red dot mount. I don't want anything that doesn't have a red dot mount. Now, I uploaded a video on this red dot and kind of talking about the differences between iron sights and optics. And what I will say, what you don't want to happen is you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're at some range or some distance and somebody is firing at you or shooting at you and you are just relying on your iron sights. A red dot really does help when it comes to distance as well as just target acquisition. If you get the right red dots, I definitely think, in my personal opinion, that they help out a lot when it comes to target acquisition and, you know, pulling up and being able to find it. Now, last time I did a video on these and I was talking about the differences between them, there were a lot of people who were saying, you know, you don't need a red dot, or if you can't hit with irons, then you don't need a red dot or a handgun at all. And I will agree with that. I think you should get good with your iron sights. However, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody that I've ever brought out here to train with me putting them on iron sights versus starting them on a red dot, them doing better on the iron sights out the gate, right? Like if it's a brand new shooter and you give them a gun to train with iron sights and a gun to train with the red dot, they will get significantly better quicker with the red dot. It's just simpler. You know, they don't have to line up the 3-dot system and make sure it's perfectly parallel and things like that. They can literally line this optic up to where the gun's firing and put that dot on what they need to hit, and they're gonna hit it. You know, I know that there is some people who argue that you have to train to find the dot, and I would agree with that, but you also have to train to line up the iron sights. So if you start a brand new shooter on both, I think they'll pick up the red dot a lot quicker. So, but that's just my opinion. You know, obviously you buy your gun, you do what you want with it, but those are the few things that I'm looking for on my carry guns, is mag capacity, over 10 rounds, 4-inch barrel minimum. I don't really like anything smaller than that. It's just a little bit too snappy, and I want this to be accurate in a stressful situation. Good iron sights and an optics cut. Now the trigger, obviously, I think any gun that I have, I want a good trigger in it. So if you buy a Glock or something like that, you can always upgrade it. Smith & Wesson has some options too, so there's always upgrades in that in the future. However, I wouldn't say the trigger is a really big deal breaker for me. I've had guns with heavier triggers that weren't that bad, but I do really enjoy a nice trigger as well. So you want this to be your bodyguard essentially, right? And you wouldn't hire some person who's out of shape and, you know, can't handle himself to protect you. So why would you buy the bare minimum firearm or a gun that just is not very comfortable to shoot or is not very accurate to defend your life, right? It's the same exact logic. So the other gun we have out here is a little bit bigger. It does still kind of have that micro frame. It has that 365 frame, just with the extended rail, but you do have a longer barrel, so that makes sense. But it is kind of a slimline micro frame, so you could still carry this. But it does have a little bit of a longer barrel. So this is a 4.3 inch barrel. This also kind of ticks all the boxes I just talked about. In your flat flush mag with this one, you have 17 rounds. So 17 plus 1, 18 round mag capacity. You do have really nice sights on here. You have a fiber optic front sight. Not night sights, but we do have a Romeo X on here to make up for that. So the Romeo X is a great red dot, really good for target acquisition. You could probably even use this thing for like competition and stuff like that. But again, clicks all the boxes. Really, really nice trigger, really consistent. And overall, this has been one of my favorite handguns to shoot. All right, so we're just gonna start out with a little bit of training. We're gonna do a little bit of shooting, and I'm just gonna run you guys through kind of the drills that I do when I am practicing with my carry guns. So I do have a holster here. This is a leather holster. In my opinion, you can go for Kydex or leather. I would stay away from like the really cheap cloth holsters because they're just really flimsy, and you want something that's gonna be stiff, so that way when you do draw and things like that, that it kind of stays in place and it does keep your gun stiff in the holster. You don't want something that's gonna be flopping around too much and things like that. However, in my experience, I've had really good luck with Kydex and leather holsters. Leather holsters I would usually buy if you have multiple handguns that you like to carry that can fit inside of that holster, because then it will save you a little bit of money. However, you want to make sure you get you a decent quality leather holster that really does have a good amount of stiffness in it, so it's not flopping around and everything like that. You do also want to make sure that your holster fits in a way that it's covering the trigger guard. That's the most important thing. If you guys have seen, there's a lot of P320s that have been going off lately. There's a lot of debate online whether it's the holsters or whether it's the gun. I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't know. I don't carry a P320. All right, guys, this ain't a P320. I'm a 365 guy. I've never really been a big fan of the P320 anyway, so if you're carrying a P320, just make sure you say your prayers before you carry appendix. We have our P365 FUSE out here today. That's what we're going to be starting out with, and my first drill here is really going to be practicing the draw. You don't need to do this fast. If you're a new shooter, slow and steady is going to win the race, right? So you really just want to practice the movement over and over again. You can also do this dry firing. However, if you do come out in the range, then it does give you an opportunity to do this. So I'm just going to kind of run you through my one-shot drill that I usually start out with. And we'll start out slow and then we'll speed it up as this process goes on. I do like doing one-shot drills and three-shot drills, and I'm just going to run you guys through that today, and that's going to be a lot of the shooting you guys are going to see today, so you can replicate these at home and see if they help you guys. So for the first drill, I'm just going to lift up, and we're going to do it slowly. Lift up one hand, lift up the shirt, draw with the other, pull out. We want to get that red dot on target, fire, and then that's going to be our first shot. So we're really just practicing that initial first shot whenever we are drawing. Let's get to it. All right, there's one. You want to make sure when you're reholstering that you do not have your finger on that trigger. There's nothing in the way. So having a good belt is a big part of this too. You want a good belt that's going to strap that close to your body. You don't want to have a loose belt or a belt that doesn't fit right. You want to have a really good belt. Oh, we missed that time. All right. So with this drill, you're really just working on fundamentals. You're working on, you know, trying to get that first shot to hit exactly what you're aiming at. So that's why we're using this smaller gong out here, because that smaller gong is going to basically be the circumference area of either chest, head, whatever you may be aiming at. God forbid you get put in a bad situation. So that's why we're kind of practicing on getting the first 1 or 2 shots on target, and that's kind of why I advocate for you doing 3-shot drills. You don't need to really be doing 5-shot drills or anything like that unless you're competition shooting, because in the self-defense scenario, the shots that are going to count the most are going to be those first you know, 3 to 5 shots. So that's kind of why I limit myself to doing 1 to 3 shot drills with a handgun when I first get them, to kind of practice with them. So whenever we are drawing here, and you are drawing from the holster, making sure you have your finger off is very important. Pulling that gun up, but then keeping it close to your face, because you don't know how far you may be from your target. And a lot of self-defense scenarios, they're even closer than what I'm shooting at right now. So when you are drawing up, you want to make sure you keep it close, you get that red dot or your sights on the target, and then you push out a little bit and then fire. All right, so like I said, draw, keep close to the body, point out, and make sure you hit that target. All right, so now we're gonna speed it up a little bit, practicing the draw. All right, first shot there. You want to be very careful doing this too. You don't want to have your finger on that trigger. Don't want that gun to go off and shoot you if you're doing appendix drawing. All right, so speed it up just a tad bit. Let's go ahead. All right, so now we're gonna run shooter ready standby drills and try to get it every time. Now, I'm not a combat shooter, I'm not a competition shooter. I am literally a guy who comes out a few times a month to the range and shoots at paper in the backyard. So just keep that in mind. Not a great shooter, but I'm trying to get better every day.
Shooter ready, stand by, beep.
Ooh. Yeah, that shrapnel will fly back, so you want to be careful. That's why we're wearing iPro. We're shooting this close with handguns on steel. And what's going to make you faster is a good holster. Practicing consistency is really going to be the main thing, but you do want to make sure you have a good holster that when you do pull out, you know, it's coming directly out, right? So you want to make sure you have the holster with the proper fit, Kydex holster or a good leather holster that's going to you know, fit properly to your body. You also want to make sure you have the right clothing. If you got some super tight shirt on, it's going to be harder to pull that up and draw. So the good thing about the modern day Crusader shirts is they leave enough room around the stomach where you can actually wear them where you don't print too heavy, and they will come up pretty easily.
Shooter ready, stand by, beep.
And don't try to go super fast, right? You could be the craziest range ninja ever, but especially shooting at a target this small, you want to go slow and steady and just practice on form for a long time before you ever get super extremely fast. Not everybody can be T-Rex arms day one, all right? So I think this is a good drill just to run to get your fundamentals down. A one-shot drill, you know, practicing that trigger control, holstering, finger off the trigger. 3 movements: shirt up, hand on gun, draw. And you can even do this with dry fire. So what I will say as far as how many rounds I like to put to my guns before I consider them carryable, for me it's around 250 rounds. So I try to put at least 250 rounds through my guns before I would fully say that I trust them. I know for some people they want to put 500, for some people it's 1,000. For me, if it can get past 250 rounds of different ammunition, you know, up front, out of the box with no malfunctions, then at that point I will trust the gun to carry it. I know some people 1,000 rounds, some people 500. It's really your personal preference. However, I would definitely recommend putting at least 200 to 250 rounds through the gun to test it. We're going to do the same drill here a few times with the Smith and see what we can do. Now the red dot on this one is not as good as that as far as target acquisition, because that one is a full circle. This one is just a dot. So I'm curious to see what the difference will be when I draw. So, all right, let's do it a few times with this. Give me a shooter ready, stand by on this one.
Shooter ready, stand by, beep.
There, missed. Definitely a little bit smaller, a little bit snappier. So let's try that again.
Shooter ready, stand by, beep.
Is that a hit?
Sound like it.
Okay, I can't hear. It moved, I can't hear.
Sound like it dinged.
Yeah, okay, all right. I think I hit it very left side.
Shooter ready, stand by, beep.
That was center.
Shooter ready, stand by, beep.
That was a miss. See, I'm a little bit rusty with this gun compared to the Sig.
Shooter ready, stand by, beep.
Woo.
Shooter ready, stand by, beep.
So like I said, guys, when we're talking about grip length, I think it's important to have something where you can still, conceal it pretty well. But, you don't want something too short to where when you pull up, you don't have a full grip on that handgun. Because I can already tell you, this just versus that Sig, big difference. Because that Sig, as soon as I pull up, I've got the perfect grip angle. With this, it's a lot harder for me to get that grip angle on it, which messes with my accuracy. Which may not make a lot of difference with a human-sized target, but with something small like this, it definitely makes a difference. But this is why we practice small, so we can shoot big.
Ready, stand by, beep. Shooter ready, stand by, beep.
That's pretty good. All right, so now we're gonna do some Mozambiques. 2 to the body, 1 to the head, drawing from appendix. Like I said, guys, if you try this at home and you're a brand new shooter, you probably need to dry fire first. Don't try this at home if you're a brand new shooter and you haven't tried it with dry fire. You do not want to do this without trigger discipline. When you're carrying appendix, especially when you're carrying a gun without a safety, which is something I'll touch on, but you want to make sure that you have trigger discipline. If you pull that trigger, this gun will go off. You don't pull that trigger, the gun won't go off, unless you carry a P320. When we talk about safeties, if you're a new shooter and you don't feel comfortable without a safety, you have to remember that not every gun has a safety. Me personally, on my carry guns, I don't like a safety. It's another thing that you have to remember to turn off or shut off before you fire that gun. And when you're in a really sticky situation, you can tell yourself all day long, oh, I'll remember. But there's a lot of cases out there where people don't remember and they go to pull their firearm and they try to fire it and the safety's on and it costs them their life. So with that being said, me personally on my carry guns, I like to train trigger discipline and practice gun safety. Always point the gun in a safe direction. Don't point at anything that you're not intended to absolutely destroy, except for your genitals whenever you're appendix carrying. I know it's a little bit hypocritical, but yeah.
Shooter ready, stand by, beep.
Alrighty, so the first 2 here, bam, bam, we got real close to that center. That's really good for a quick draw. If you guys ever practice with handguns, you'll know that, when you shoot fast, your group really spreads out a lot. However, that's really good. And I'm gonna actually attribute that to using a red dot. A lot of people will swear by their iron sights. A red dot will make you a lot more accurate, especially in a sticky situation where you may not have the time or the focus to be able to line up the 3-dot sights. And in my opinion, arguably, I think that it's easier to find the dot than it is to focus and line up the 3 sights very quickly. So this is my opinion. 2 here, 1 in the head. That's actually a really good first try with this gun.
Shooter ready, stand by, beep. Wait.
Right, so, bam, bam, got 2 here. That's really good shot, really close. Pulled this one a little bit and then a perfect headshot. So we're gonna just keep running this and try to go faster and faster with it.
Shooter ready, stand by, beep.
I think I put both of those right on top of each other. That's pretty good. And then 1 here. I mean, that's good. So I would say, guys, I would definitely practice within 3 to 7 yards for your self-defense distance. That's generally what most self-defense classes are going to run you through, and that's generally for your concealed carry qualifications and things like that. Most of the distance you'll be shooting at, you won't often shoot past 10 to 15 yards. So furthest distance to train and make sure that you train accurately at, I would say, would be 10 to 15 yards. However, I like to bring it back to 25 yards sometimes, but I wouldn't say it's a necessity to fire your handgun at 25 yards, because if you think about self-defense and self-defense cases, a lot of times at 25 yards, that distance is going to be questionable on if your life was actually in jeopardy and if you had the option to run.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
I think I pulled the one on the head. Here. I did. The Donald Trump shot. The Donald Trump shot. They said it wasn't possible, but I just disproved that. That is a ear shot. That is the exact same location as the Trump shooter right there. However, guys, I have no political affiliation, so sometimes it will happen, guys. Like I said, you also have to think stressful situation, you'll probably definitely pull it. So that's why you want the most accurate handgun as possible. So if you got something super snappy and it's snapping up as you're shooting it real high, then it's going to be very easy to pull that shot off target. All right, we're going to do double Mozambique. You got 2 targets.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
All right, looks like bam, bam. Okay, bam, bam, bam. Bam, bam. One of these, I think I actually hit double there, possibly. There's no, I didn't pull it anywhere. So it's possible I hit a double because it looks bigger now. And then we did get the headshot. It's actually pretty good. Comped, barrel, worth it. $600 for this. Low-key a cheat code. That's why I want to carry this gun.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
I think I may have put another one there. I didn't pull one. Oh, actually, I may have pulled one. Unless that's from earlier. I can't tell. I may have actually pulled one that time. We got both shots on target. We switched it up. We're going to do the P365 FUSE. And now take a few 3-shot drills with this one.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
Looks like we pulled a little bit with that one. That's the new one, right? Yeah, it looks like these 2 down here maybe.
That
1, 2,
one in the top
3.
one looks like. Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
That was better. Still shooting a little bit low though, I can tell. I'm in here and it's shot here. I don't think I pulled that. I think that's literally just the red dot shooting low, because you see these shots too. That one's new and don't know quite where I shot the other one. All right, so now we step back here a little bit. I'm actually pull up, take a shot at the gong, and then take 2 shots and 2 shots at each of my targets. This does have a longer barrel than the Smith, so reasonably this should do better at distance than the Smith does.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep. Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
Still shooting a little bit low. I can't adjust it, guys, because I don't have the Allen key for it. Most of the time the Holstons are flatheads, and I always carry a flathead, but I don't have an Allen key, so we just kind of have to deal with it for right now. So another thing I would say that you definitely want to train when you're out here with your carry gun is training on the trigger. Training to find the wall of the trigger and kind of letting your finger rest on that wall once you have your gun aimed at what you want to shoot. Because every gun has a different trigger mechanism. Some are more mushy, some are a little bit firmer, but you want to know where your gun actuates at, because that's what's going to make you the most accurate. When you go up and you know exactly where that reset is, and you can almost ride that reset for your follow-up shots, that's going to make you a lot accurate, because it's going to prevent you from jerking that trigger too much, which is going to throw off your shot, which is something that I'm very notoriously bad for doing in these SIG guns with these kind of triggers. Generally, like Glocks and Smith & Wessons, I do a little bit better, but this trigger here, for whatever reason, it always throws me off, and it's hard for me to ride the wall. But that's what I'm actually practicing on right now with the gong, because that seems to be what keeps throwing off my shots with this firearm. So we're gonna keep practicing through it.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
Last one missed, but it was swinging. You gotta train through it, guys. You gotta train it. You wanna find that wall, find where that wall's at, find it, it's right there, it's stiff, it gets real stiff. Don't break it. When you're ready to fire, break the wall. Ride it back, Find it right there, you're on the wall again, boom. It makes your follow-up shots a lot more accurate and will make your groups a lot better.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Beep.
Hey guys, I don't want a problem. I don't want a problem. I don't want a... Alrighty, so just to close this out, guys, you know, we did do pretty good here, minus the ones that we pulled a little bit low because of the SIG. But this is why we train, guys, to figure these things out and to adjust our guns accordingly. You know, maybe it's not the sight, maybe you end up deciding, oh yeah, I don't really like the trigger on this gun, so you end up going with the aftermarket trigger. Training is very important with your carry gun, and some of the drills I did out here today is usually kind of how I train with my carry guns. You don't want to just train at the range shooting straight, right? Because that's not going to be the predicament that you're in whenever you have to use your firearm. You really want to train the fundamentals. That's what's going to make you quicker and make you more effective. Pulling up the shirt, drawing the firearm, keeping your finger off that trigger, the safety so you don't accidentally shoot yourself, presenting that gun, putting the red dot on target, pushing out, things like that. Those very, very small fundamentals are very important when you buy a new gun and you want to use it for carry. Now, I know we did cover also a few things in this video on, you know, kind of what I look for in a carry gun. Now, guys, this is all really personal preference. However, I have owned many, many, many different handguns, from HKs to Tauruses to Sig Sauers. I mean, I've owned practically almost everything at some point and have a lot of experience with different handguns, micro guns, things like that. And what I will tell you is that with handguns, it absolutely does make a difference in the small things when you pay a little bit of a premium for a nicer handgun, such as a comped barrel or a longer barrel or a stippling on the grip on the frame, right? So you can get that really good grip. Things like that make a giant difference. I mean, even going down to, you know, whether you can mount a red dot on it or not. If you are not a person who shoots very well with iron sights, not saying that you're not effective, but if you don't shoot very well with iron sights, you're not pleased with your performance when you train, then maybe you want to look into a red dot and stick that on there so it makes it a little bit easier in a stressful situation to be able to put your shots on target. However, you still need to train very often to ensure that you are good with that red dot and that you can line it up pretty quickly and get used to it and make sure that red dot's shooting where it needs to be. The Smith performed very, very well today. I mean, putting that green dot on there has absolutely really changed the performance of that firearm. I was not very pleased with the iron sights on it for it being as flat shooting as it is. It just didn't seem like it was crazy accurate. So, you know, I'm glad we stuck that red dot on there, but I would only know that I wanted to do that based on the 200 rounds I've already put through that gun and kind of how they fired, right? Once I got used to the gun, it still didn't seem as accurate as I wanted it. So now it's pretty much a laser beam, even for being a micro gun. And with that being said, you know, that's why I want to carry it, because it empowers me to be better in terms of performance in a sticky situation. Pulling out fast, drawing fast, but somehow I still get good shots on target. That's the way you want to set up your gun. If this is the gun that you're going to be using in a sticky situation, think about how much your life is worth. You don't want to skip on a handgun if your life is on the line and you're protecting your life with this gun. You want the gun that is going to basically be a superpower to you in that situation, meaning it shoots flat, it's accurate, good trigger, good mag capacity. You don't want to skip on something that you're going to be carrying every day. You know, if it was a gun that was going to be sitting in the safe, or a rifle or AR or something like that, maybe it's a different conversation. But when it comes to a handgun, something that's more probable to be used than any other gun laying in your safe, I definitely think that you want to be mindful when you're picking handguns, right? So really make sure, if you're a new shooter out there, that you're not going for a super compact small handgun or the cheapest thing you can find, because in this situation I definitely think it's worth spending the extra money if you can get a better trigger, nicer sights, a stippled grip, better mag capacity. Things like that are really all going to add up when it comes to your performance in a self-defense situation. So that's how I train with my guns, just doing some of the drills I did out here, really practicing the draw and things like that. But it's going to take consistency. You got to come out here, you got to put hundreds of rounds down range and do it over and over again to really get good and really get fast with it. I'm still, obviously, as you can tell, not perfect, not the fastest, not the best, and I have been shooting handguns for a very, very long time, since I was a very small child. So with that being said, if you're new, go out, get some ammo, train. Before you buy your first handgun, maybe hit up a friend who has a collection of firearms where you can test out a few different options, Glock, Smith & Wesson, Sig, a few different options so that you can really see what you want and, you know, buy according to that. Or you could go to a gun range and rent out some of the guns and test before you buy a handgun. Make sure that you're prepared, not only with your handgun, but make sure you're prepared physically, financially, spiritually, things like that, because in these situations in self-defense, you never know what could happen. You may have to go and get a lawyer, you know, to defend yourself in court. Nowadays, we know how the political atmosphere is. You may lose your life if you get in a self-defense situation, because not everybody walks out alive, so you need to be right spiritually. And physically, you know, who knows? Something may happen. Your gun may jam, or the attacker may somehow take your gun off of you and you have to defend yourself with your hands. So you definitely want to train in all aspects. This is literally just one part of it, but this is how I train with my carry guns and how I kind of test them and see if there's something I want to carry. If they don't perform well out here on these drills and I really seem not to like them, then I'm probably going to opt in for something else that's a little bit better. So with that being said, guys, feel free to use some of these drills at home to kind of practice. If you're looking for a place to start on how to get better with you know, self-defense scenarios and just training, then feel free to take some of these kind of drills that I did out here and do them yourself. I think the most important thing is just really getting down that trigger discipline if you're carrying appendix. That way you don't shoot yourself in the genitals. And really just practicing that movement. I think that's the most important, because in a stressful situation, your training is going to kick in. It doesn't matter how good you are at the range with a competition firearm. If you're not carrying a competition firearm and you're not training for stressful situations where you may have to shoot quickly and draw, then you're just not going to be as good. So you want to put yourself through those paces, put the gun through those paces, and make sure it is the gun for you. I have my boxes I like to take with my guns because I've trained out here and I know what I like. You should probably do the same. Your boxes may not be the same as mine. However, I hope this is a good starting point for you all. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys watching the video and watching this through. Please comment below what you carry, what your EDC is, and how often that you like to train with it. And please, you know, any tips, advice from me as well. I'm always trying to get better as a shooter. You know, I'm open to any advice that you guys have. Let us know what we can do better. Like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.